everyone, and welcome back to the park. Today I'm working on a fabric design, technically, and I'm not sure I'll actually end up using it for anything, but I did want to play around with a weird little design thought, and this was the easiest. I'm not sure easiest is the correct term. This was the application that it made the most sense for, I guess is what we'll go with. I've mentioned before in a few videos that I actually really like Lolita fashion. It's a Japanese fashion style that is pretty much it's hyper feminine and modest, and has some and the history was actually really cool. Anyways, and it also has a few like pieces and like design motifs, that sort of thing, that show up in it quite frequently, and everywhere else like not at all or very rarely. One of the big ones is border prints. Probably a good man 60 to 80% of releases most likely have some form of border print element to them, as opposed to most mainstream, at least in Western fashion, where they appear fairly rarely and most often in children's clothes. And another one that shows up a lot is this weird little like crop top style of shirt. Generally it's like a translucent, like a very lightweight, somewhat translucent fabric, like a chiffon or a lace, and its sole purpose is to wear underneath a JSK, which is basically a sundress in essence, and you just wear it underneath to preserve modesty, and that's just something that doesn't necessarily show up. It's kind of like camisole, but not. It will have sleeves and will generally have always have a much higher neckline. So that is what this was designed for hypothetical use for, but again, I actually don't really have any plans to use it as such, though I did enjoy working on it quite a lot. And anyways, so again, what I did today was I designed a border print and the hypothetical colorways that it would be released in. So yeah, the working title for this, and probably the current one, is House Snails, which is fairly self-explanatory. And I just kind of worked on it in sections. So the bottom is the part that is going to repeat, obviously, and would be the bottom edge of a skirt, or probably just a skirt. I have some people use either border print fabric or even take apart skirts to make them into OG clothes, which is kind of a sibling style to Lolita in a way, but it's basically the masculine equivalent to an extent. So I've seen people use it to make like pants, or like border prints on the edge of jackets are also really cool. So that could be a fun use for this. So I started out by just making a honestly way larger file than necessary for the little snail friend, and then brought it over to a new document and made the environment for said snail to exist in layers. So to do that, again, I did a rough sketch of what I wanted to do, and then worked in layers. Started with just blocking in and doing the lines for the front layer of grass, and then worked on the midground, and then did the background after that. And obviously the main challenge in a border print or anything like this is getting the repeating pattern correct. So to do that, I got rid of a lot of the layering I tend to use, and was very conscious to make sure that they stayed somewhat useful. And then I would do like large swaths of airbrush shading over top, and then messed around with the layer settings to make it an object layer, and then had it be a repeating pattern, and again worked from there, made sure it was even, brought it back over to the thing. And I did this several times for each piece, and then made it back into a raster layer just so I wouldn't accidentally move around or anything like that, because it's a bit harder to adjust the raster layers accidentally. Alright, so yeah, that's pretty much was the structure for the background. And so, and then also so here's the background of the border. So we, the foreground, midground, and the background. And I wasn't entirely certain what I wanted to do for this part. I knew I wanted it to go up higher than anything else, but wasn't entirely certain which to begin with. So I just kind of started sketching, and then from there just kind of blocked in a whole lot of daisies. Because whenever I'm working on something and need flowers, I tend to default towards daisies. I just really like them. Yeah. And then again, I needed to make sure that they repeated well, so just kind of wiggled stuff around. In this case, what I did was I didn't want to have to move these around and match them up to pieces. So I just made sure that the end of one of the leaves, the liner, just overlapped a little tiny bit right on the border, but otherwise I could just work on it as a whole and not worry about it too much. And then I went through and blocked in the color and like the other layers, but a little bit more intense because there's a few more color options. Just went through and blocked in the rest of the colors. In this case, the petals, and then moved into the centers, and then worked on the shading after that, making sure to clear out a few little pieces here and there. And then I really darkened up the line art and messed around with it a lot because I wanted it to be a little... The yellow was too weird looking and I didn't like that, but I still needed it to be a little more than it was. So that's what I did there, and then I just added the shading again, and these are actually almost the same. I used pretty much the same shading colors for every piece in here. I think the exception is the snail. I think I did actually use more red tones, but the rest of them, it is a yellow for the highlight, and then it is a green for the shadow, which works really well on the plants. Though, actually, maybe I did use a red. I'm not entirely certain. I can't remember what I did anymore. It's been a minute. And then just kept the opacity on the layer and added some more just airbrushing layers to add a little bit more dimension and a little bit of texture. And that was pretty much done for this part. Yeah, here we go again, just adjusting the line art some more airbrushing. And here is the branding, kind of. There have been a few times where I've considered doing an indie brand of Lolita fashion. Most likely it would just be like skirts and like JSKs, just because the way that those tend to work is they're more of a free sizing than anything else, and those are fairly easy to adjust, and I feel comfortable making those. So I have a potential brand for that, which is what the spectral fins is. If I do anything with that, I will probably put something on here first and most likely be working on some of it. I actually have a very specific fabric designed for that anyway, which is... will probably show up at some point just because that is a large ongoing project, specifically designed border print and other pieces. I have lace samples and some stuff. I will post about that at some point because it's going to get done regardless. Anyways, now on to the finishing part and how it went from more of a actual picture to something that could actually be a fabric. So, started out by bringing it on the bottom, and at first I thought maybe do like little wavy lines. So I did little tiny sketches of some of the elements and then scattered them about and put in some lines. And I realized that I didn't like the wave, so I decided to go with more of a pinstripe. And again, just converting the layer, adjusting it some, moving it around. Here's where I made a small mistake. So I started out with a scale that worked for the size that I had. Basically, there's a setting in Clip Studio you can use for when you have a repeating pattern, where if you have it as an object layer, you can just copy it and it'll just cover the entire piece, which is very handy. But I had to make sure that it repeated in an equal amount, so I had to adjust the sizes a little bit for that. So yeah, there's the stripes on there and a whole bunch of recording that I did not I decided to leave out of just doing the colorways because I realized that I wanted to make it a longer print. Just the one little repeat is, I think it's about 12 inches. So it'd be, I wanted to have a little bit more variety to it. So I decided I was going to make a little more snails because what's better than one house snail? 3 house snails. So I just kind of sketched in some more snails, and I wanted to add a little bit of variety to them. So I tried to do different little house styles. This one has a little porch and a little swing. The other one has like more of a tiered roof, that sort of thing. And the weirdest door, I couldn't decide what I wanted to do with the door, so I just kind of... There we go, that makes it a little bit better. And this is a very cool snail. So yeah, I just kind of had some fun with this that I hadn't necessarily done in a while. And then again, blocked in the colors and decided that I wanted to keep them in more of like a primary color scheme. So instead of going with more reds or anything, I decided red, yellow, blue would fit in with the background fairly well. And colored these snails in the same kind of way that I did with the other one, in that I had about three different shades of each color and then adjusted some more. And then I used the same red for the basic shading on these that I did for the other one, and also did an airbrush of a darker blue and yellow in this case to add a little bit more dimension. Actually, I think I might have used orange for the yellow snail just because the yellow can be weird. And then ended up using 2 different shading tones for the colors for the highlight, and just kind of attacked them with more airbrushed. I believe this one is a color dodge instead of a glow dodge. And then I decided to do 2 repeats of the background and foreground elements with the snails in approximately the same space, which would add a really nice repeat sort of style to it. So I had to go back in and adjust the shadows on there so that they would match, and then went through to another file and butted the 2 together so that they formed the complete print repeat, basically. And then made that an object layer, dumped it in, filled in the bottom. And also it means that there's a little bit more difference between there and the hypothetical brand name. And there was a slight issue. So you could see for about a second there where they didn't quite match up. There was a small white gap, and it took a few tries to get rid of that. Right, so yeah, and then put in the little pinstripe, and then started adjusting the pinstripes to different colors and saving the files, basically ready for print. In this case, the printing would be on Spoonflower just because for various reasons, I have no need to actually like go to an overseas producer for it, so I just saved everything to the Spoonflower specifications. And yeah, then I just cut away a bunch to do all 5 of the potential colorways in a row. And yeah, there is the finished hypothetical fabric print. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed your visit. See you next time.